Welcome students. In this session, we will learn about the topic ethical issues and e-waste management. So what is ethical issues? If there is any data available on the internet and anyone is using without the permission of the owner, then this type of acts comes under the topic ethical issues. And what is e-waste management? In this topic, you will learn about the management of the e-waste, means the phones, the TV, and the other communication devices which are electronically basically. So now starting with the first topic, that is ethical issues. So what is ethics? First of all, you should know about the ethics. Ethics are the some moral principle that we should not to tell lie, we should not to steal anything, and like many more. So if there is some data available on the internet and one is stealing the data from that internet without the owner's permission or without the showing that this particular work is taken from in any other source, then this type of issues comes under the topic ethical issues in the cyber laws. So the some common ethical issues are intellectual property right, plagiarism, digital property right. So starting with the first one, that is intellectual property right. The intellectual property right tells that the owner of the information has the right to decide that how much of the data can be shared, distributed, or exchanged between the people. So you can say the creator or the producer of the information is the real owner of the data. Means if you have any your data on the internet, then you are the owner of the data. So you are the only one who can decide that how much amount of that data will be shared among the people or distributed among the people. So no one can else share the data without your permission. So this type of rights comes under the topic intellectual property rights. The next one is plagiarism. Plagiarism is stealing someone's data. Means as we can see in the music industries, there are so many type of issues are there that some else music composer steals some others music composition. So this type of act comes under the plagiarism topic. This is called, in simple sentence we can see it, is stealing of the data. Means I had prepared a presentation and posted it on the internet, and someone can download it and use it or represent it by its your one work, means without showing the source of the data. So means stealing the data from the internet and representing its like own data. So this type of act is called stealing of the data. So when you steal some data without the permission of the owner, then this is a violation of Copyright Act. Means copyright means there is a copyright of the owner on that particular data. So if you are using someone other's data, then this is the violation of Copyright Act. So what we can do, if we are using some others data, then we should quote the source of the data, means the name of the author. Some as like we are doing bibliography in your project file, where what we are doing, we are writing the source of the data from where we are getting that data. So if we are doing so, then the stealing is not happening. But if we are not doing so, then we can see the stealing of data is happened. The next topic is digital property rights. Again, that what we have on the internet or what we have in the form of digital, this is called digital property rights. So that refers to any information about us created by you that exists in digital form, either online storage devices. Means if you have some data on the Google Drive, then this is your digital property. If you have on ATM on account on Paytm, then this is your digital property. If you have your accounts on the any shopping site, this is your digital property. So the any type of your digital asset on the internet, then this is known as your digital property. It may be your blog, it may be your any data from your YouTube channel, any social media account. So all these are called your digital property rights. So then what will be happen? the property is all about the owner. Owner is only the person who can decide or who can take decision according to these properties. So what are the threats to the digital property? If there is some property digitally available, then there are many threats are also available on the internet. First one is digital software penetration tools like this, and the second one is stealing and plagiarism code of our digital properties. Now starting with the first one, what is digital software penetration tool? In this, what hackers do, hackers cracks and hijack the site, and they can enable authorized user to freely access the software without actually paying for it. Means if there is any website and the website is charging some money from the users of it, but hackers, what hackers do, hackers penetrate the website with the help of any cracking tool, and they can use the particular website without paying to the party. So this type of act is called what? Digital violation of digital property rights. Again, the next part is stealing and plagiarism codes of the data. Means in other words, we can say that our software source code, someone can steal our software source code and it may be used to build the own version of themselves and then sell it down their own company name. So this type of stealing comes under these type of digital property rights. Now moving to the next topic, that what can we do to save our digital property rights. So what type of protections are available? The first one is anti-tamper solution, the second is legal clauses, and the third is limiting the sharing of the software code. So from starting, the first one is anti-tamper solution. These are some advanced technical solution. With help of these solution, we can make our digital property tamper proof. Means no one can penetrate our particular software, and this is a sort of shield upon your digital property. And with the help of this technology, no one can be able to manipulate our digital properties. The next is a legal clause, means such as Copyright Violation Act. So what we can do, we can include a transparent clause in the topic term of services, as you can see in many softwares, that's prohibit the scrapping our software source code for reuse. Means in the term of services, you can write in a very simple line that the reuse of code is not allowed, or it may cause a violation of Copyright Act. If it is written in your particular software, then if there any type of violation happened, you may put a case or put a clause on that particular person who is stealing your data. The third one is, so limiting the sharing of the software code. Means if you are developing any particular software code and you don't want to share it with so many people, so the main important thing, that share it only those people who are in the development team. So with the help of limitation of sharing of the software code, you are able to protect your data from the stealing. So these are the few simple solutions through which you can protect your data from the stealing. Now starting with the next topic, that is cybercrime. So it is very simple to understand that all the crimes that can be committed with the help of any electronic media is come in the section of the cybercrime. Means all the crimes done with the help of internet, with the help of laptop, with the help of mobile come under the cybercrime section. So it involves all kinds of fraud, cyberbullying, child pornography, cyber stalking, etc. Now moving to the first topic, that is information theft. So what is information theft? The information about anyone is the very vital information. Means your address, your phone number, your email ID, your bank account number. These are the few information which are very important for you as well as for the hackers and the person who committed such type of cyber crimes for those also. So when we are when we are shopping in the internet, we are entering some vital information such as our payment related information, our home address. So these information must be safe and must not fall into the wrong hand. So what uh, they do, what the people who commit cyber crimes they do, they attempt many type of attempts in order to just obtain these personal information from ourselves. So in order to information theft, what they do, the first one is phishing attack. So what is phishing attack? Phishing means try to catch a fish. In the similar way, the hackers do, what they do, they send some websites to you all in the term of mail or messages that is exactly similar to the original website. Okay, so with help of those websites, they ask for your personal information, and if when someone unknowingly entered their personal information in the genuine looking website, then what will happen, the website redirects to the hackers and all your information will be obtained by the person who wants to commit any type of frauds with you all. So in the phishing attack, the user should be very careful when he or she is entering data any website. The website should be legal and encrypted. When you open any website, in the address bar you can see there is a sign of lock there. If sign of lock is there, it means the site is secure and the data is encrypted. And if the log sign is not there, it means that particular website is not secure. So what is phishing attack means? In the phishing attack, what the imposters do, imposters send an particular email or particular address of the website is not genuine, the email address is not genuine. In this way, they demand for your personal data, and when you are not taking care about the website and just enter your personal data into that website, then what will happen, the website will be redirected to those persons and your data may be obtained by the some people who are engaged in cyber crime acts. Now starting with the next topic, that is scams. What is scam? Any fraud business practice that extract money from an unsuspecting ignorant person is called scam. Any online activity which is used to extract money from the user is called as scams. So what we can do to avoid such online scams? Now starting with the first one, never reply an email from any unknown or unreliable source. Means sometimes we are getting email with a link. When you click on that link, a new web page will open, and that web page may ask your bank related information, any other information. So this is not the correct way to open any website and enter your information is that website. So never click on any link that you have received in your email, even if you know the center. So what we can do, we can open a new browser window and type the URL. Means what is the web address of that particular website, type the URL and then click on the link of the email. It means don't use the link provided in the email. Open a new web page and then enter the URL and open the website. The next one, sometimes we can get a message that we won a amount of 50 lakh and 50 crore. So in the excitement, what we can do, we can click on the link and provide some personal information to there also. So we should never respond to an email or any such type of messages claiming that we have won something. So just be a little bit careful so you can save yourself from the scams. And always go through the encrypted websites or the secure websites. So as I told you earlier, in the URL block or in the address block, you can see there is a sign of lock. This lock is called padlock. So if the padlock sign is not available, so do not enter your personal data in that particular website. So by following few measures, you can save yourself from such kind of scam. Now moving to the next section, that is illegal downloads. This is a very familiar topic to all of us. We can usually do the downloads illegally. Is it true? Now, so what is illegal download? So illegal download refers to obtaining file from which you don't have the right to use or to download from the internet. Means if we don't have right to download it from the internet and we are downloading it, then this type of downloads are called illegal downloads. So it is a downloading a paid digital item without making any payment and using an illegal way to download. So we don't do this. Now moving to the next section, that is child pornography. That definition is written very clearly that if there is any type of visual or a written representation in which a kid that is under the age of 18 is indulged in any sexual activity in term of some images, movies, then all these type of activity comes under the child pornography section. And there is a act such name as Information Technology Act 2000 and Indian Penal Code 1816 provided protection from child pornography. If someone is indulged in such type of activity, then under this section he or she may be punished. Now start with the next topic, that is computer forensic. In this particular topic, you can say that if we collect any type of communicating device on any type of electronic media from a person who has committed some kind of cyber fraud or cyber crime, then collecting information from that device is called computer forensic, or it comes under the topic computer forensic. So computer forensic provides a legal system with a way to recover the data from the digital devices, and it is used as the evidence in the court. So the computer forensic is a systematic process that interprets electronic data for use in a court of law. The goal of the process is to preserve any evidence in its more original form, means without any type of tampering in the data, while performing a structured investigation by collecting, identifying, and validating the digital information for the purpose of reconstructing past events. Means if anyone has deleted the data can also be recovered from that system or from that mobile with the help of some recovering softwares that are available in the market. So computer forensic is a term in which we can collect or we can gather some evidence that can be used in the court also. So this is the very important topic. So according to this particular diagram, you can see in this process, first of all, we can collect the data, or collect the data means we have a collection of the laptop or of the mobile phone. Then we can examine it properly without the tampering in the data, and analysis on the basis of the previous data available in the current data. We can analyze all the situation, and in the last, our report will be prepared. And this particular report will work as the evidence. Okay. So first of all, media means electronic device. Then the data that is recovered from that device. Then the information we can gather, or we can extract the information from the data available in that particular media, and the information becomes the evidence that will be used in the court for the any legal activity. So computer forensic, in simple word, this is a term refers to collect or to gather information from any electronic media for digital evidence. So now moving to the next topic, that now we are moving to the next section, that is e-waste management. So what is e-waste? Electronic waste can be defined as the discarded computer, office electronic equipment, entertainment device, mobile phone, television sets, and refrigerators also. Means all devices that are electronic and nowadays we cannot use it. So these type of devices is called e-waste. So the very big question is that then how can we manage these e-waste? And why we need e-waste management? So the few characteristics are given here, that the fastest growing segment of the waste means there are many types of waste. In all these wasted, the e-waste is the fastest growing segment, means there is a lot of e-waste available. The next is most valuable due to its basic compositions, means in the electronic goods many important or variable components are used, so we cannot throw the complete computer set, mobile set and the television set as it is. So we can use some valuable components from these devices. So it is very important to manage these e-wastes. Now very hazardous if now handled carefully. This is also to be noticed that many type of material is used in such type of devices that can be hazardous for your health and for your environment also. So all e-waste can be perfectly managed, so that no any problem can be further generated. Now moving forward, the next is e-waste disposable process. So what processes we should follow to in the disposal of the e-waste? First of all, categorize according to the composition of the e-waste, means different type of electronics items are used in various type of composition. So the categorization of the e-waste is important. So first of all, when we have some e-waste, then categorize the e-waste according to the basic components used. The second one is dismantling. So dismantling means removal of the parts. Means there are various parts used in any particular electronic medium. Some are hazardous, some are dangerous, and some are useful also. So removal of each and every part is required. Next one is segregation of ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, and plastic. Means again the same thing, when we are dismantling any particular equipment, we should have to segregate all the metals and non-metal and plastic type of metals in different sections. Reuse, there may be some other parts that can be brushed up and it may be reused, so try to reuse some parts that can be easily used in other components. Then recycling, recovering of the variable materials, means ferrous material in electrical or furnace and non-ferrous material in smelting plant, precious material in separating works, means we can recycle and recover the variable material from the e-waste also. Then the most important thing is that the treatment and the disposal of the dangerous material. Dangerous material means the material which are used in any electronic good and it is harmful for any particular person or for the society also. So like some elements such as chlorofluorocarbons and printed circuit boards and mercury. So these type of element can be handled very carefully, and the disposable of these dangerous material is also very important. So these are the few points according to which we can disposal the e-waste technology. And now moving to next topic, that is benefits of e-waste cycling. Means what are the benefits of the e-waste cycling? First we have seen the process of the e-waste management, and next now we are going to study about the benefits of the e-waste cycling. So now starting from the first one, what are the benefits? So the first benefit that you can say that it allows for recovery of the valuable precious metals. Means we are using some variables metals that we can recover from the e-waste. Means the variable precious metals can be recovered from the e-waste, and that can be used for the future use. The next one is protect public health and water quality. As we discussed earlier, some e-waste or the electronic item contains some type of hazardous or dangerous items also, such as chlorofluorocarbons and mercury and some other cadmium and other things. So when we dispose it in the water and any other thing, then they may leak in the atmosphere and through in the land have negative health and environmental effects. So when we are recycling the e-waste technology via any particular process, then it also protects the public health and it also saves the water quality. The next is creates job. We need some people for the dismantling of the dismantling process, segregation process, and to brush up the items for their reuse. So in this way we need some manpower also. So dismantling of the e-waste creates a job. The next one is save landfill space. It means simply if we are throwing our e-waste into the road or any other wayside, then what will going to happen? All the places will be occupied. So recycling of the e-waste conserve landfill space. Means by the recycling process we can conserve the landfill space. Identity theft occurs when someone uses an other personal information such as name, Aadhaar number, license number, credit card number, or any other identifying information to take on that person's identity in order to commit fraud or other crimes. So stealing an identity is unfortunately easy to do and happen mostly to unsuspecting victims. Means identity theft nowadays is a very easy process. It can easily be done through phishing attacks via your email account, stealing your online purchase information when you are a little bit careless and giving your information to such type of websites that are not authentic. So to save yourself from the identity theft, first you should have the knowledge about the sender of the email, and before entering your information you should have to careful about the site that what you are using. By using such kind of precautionary measures you can save yourself from the process identity theft. Now what types of frauds committed after identity theft? Now what happened if someone steals your identity? First of all, credit card fraud. If someone has stealed your credit card number, then he or she can use your credit card. It may also happen that they may obtain a new credit card, getting blocked your original card and asking for the duplicate one. Now the next is change your personal information. So what can thieves do? After obtaining your sensitive information, may use it to change crucial information for you, such as your phone number. Now what will happen? Now you won't be getting any SMS updated even after your bank account are being robbed. Means if someone change your phone number that is enrolled in your bank account, so if it is changed by someone, no SMS will be received by you. Okay. The next is phone and utility frauds. So using your information, the thieves may get new cell phone and get some utilities that required such information. Means if someone has stolen your Aadhaar card, then he or she can easily purchase a new SIM card by using your data. The next is bank and finance fraud. So thieves may take out loan or any other things from the bank by using your identity. And some other kinds of fraud can also be done by using the identity, like thieves may use your Aadhaar number to get variety of utility services or even obtain a job in your name or rob you of your financial benefit that is on your name. For example, the subsidy you will be getting in the LPG, if someone has get your Aadhaar number, then he or she can take it in its own account. Now moving to the next slide, that is protection against identity theft. So what measure we should take to protect ourselves from the identity theft? So first of all, protect personal information. First of all, we should ensure that all our identifications and financial documents are kept in a safe and private place. Don't share it with others very frequently. And when you are sharing it, so you have the complete trust about the people to whom you are sharing your data. The next is use unique IDs to protect your device and accounts. Usually what we do, when we are creating any ID or any password, we use your date of birth, your marriage anniversary, your son's date of birth, and some very common days in order to create the password. So don't do this. If someone is very familiar to you and he or she is knowing all these dates, then this is very easy to guess your password and to steal your identification. So when you are creating any password or login ID, be specific during creating it and write some different kind of login ID and password so no one can else be able to guess it. So next is use biometric protection. In this protection, you can use your voice waves, hand fingerprints, retina pattern, iris pattern. So by using all these, you can save your identity for being theft. So this is all about today's section. Hope you will like it. Thank you.